Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we have a mission to wake the world up to what's possible, one brave word at a time. And here today to help me with that mission are the lead authors of a new book that we have coming out called Shaman Heart, Sacred Rebel. This is the second book in a series from Stephanie Urbina Jones and Jeremy Pajer. Welcome, you guys.
Hola, so great to see you, Laura and Jeremy.
We're going to give Stephanie a hard time for her bad internet connection today, you guys. So Stephanie Urbina Jones and Jeremy Pajer are the co-founders of Freedom, Folk, and Soul and have spent over 40 years in the combined pursuit of their personal freedom. Each of them studied, prayed, walked, talked, worked, and turned over stones in the road and in their hearts to heal and create a life of humility, passion, and purpose. They teach and guide workshops and classes, trainings, and sacred pilgrimages all over the world. And I cannot wait to introduce them to you today. You guys, I'm so grateful that you're both in my world. And Stephanie, for you to come to me that day, I wish I had that on some sort of recording when you said, hey, let's bring the authors to Teo and do this magnificent thing together. And I was like, yes, let's do it. And then we did it again. And I ended up being able to write for Sacred Rebel, which I didn't think I was going to be able to do. But gosh, how did we get here, you guys? Tell me a little bit about the story of how you got to doing what you do in the world.
Well, I'll start. I love it because it all comes back to the Sacred Rebel story. For me personally, that while my parents did their best, whether it was divorce or trauma that happened in my own childhood, by the time I became an adult, I was pretty disassociated and not in my body, really not able to have relationships and to live joyfully, passionately connected to, a higher anything. And so it was in that experience for me that I began seeking. And it took me a long, long time to get to what Jeremy and I do and what we carry with Freedom, Folk, and Soul, leading these pilgrimages with people to help them, ignite their heart, to clear the wreckage of their past so that they can be in sovereignty and divine communion with why they are here on the planet at this time. But it's a long story, but here we are, and Sacred Rebel is our baby that we're so excited to share with everyone.
I love hearing the way you talk about this and what you do. Every time you talk about it, I don't know, you just give me goosebumps every time. Jeremy, tell me more about the idea of Sacred Rebel. Like, what does that mean to you, and why was it important for this book?
Well, I think it kind of came together over the years of me and Steph doing our sacred work and creating our kind of path of transformation. And I think, what was really interesting about this book, and I think with this journey, is that we really kind of introduced this concept of sacred rebel and how it is slightly different for each person and how the rebellion is different. For me, I think that we all have a constant desire for sovereignty. And that shows up stronger in our teenage years as we're trying to individuate. And often in those years, we kind of give in to the status quo, or we give in to all the ways in which we learn to keep ourselves safe, which tend to be, indirectly inauthentic to who we actually really are. And so for me, that constant desire for sovereignty, and I think for a lot of people, kind of goes into the shadow. And for me, it was my addiction and acting out, and it was my little sacred, and my chapters about that, my little sacred rebellion on some level. And of course, addiction for me, is what got me into this work. Of course, and not of course, but And so I think it does, it shows up people, secretly eat, or they secretly have addictions, or they, you know, have these little things that is like a compulsion to be authentic in their own way, in a world where we so beautifully kind of acquiesce to what it is we perceive we need to be safe, and literally to be safe in a lot of cases. And so this book is really about people, for me, the stories of people really stepping into their sovereignty, of really owning their rebellion, of making it sacred.
And man, what a book. What do you all want to say regarding these beautiful co-authors that have stepped up for this book?
Well, I can just say I'm in awe of every single one of them. We are, profoundly honored that we had a relationship with almost every single one of them. So we were aware of their stories to some degree, of who they were, of the life they had lived or not lived yet, of the dreams in their heart that they were able or not able to quite live. That they had the awareness, most of them, that there was still something that wanted their attention to be excavated and to be brought to the light. And that is why we led an author's journey with the authors. Every author knew that it would be an initiation for their life, that they would be stepping back into and to a moment in their life and coming where they had less freedom, where some story or agreement was made when they were younger that was truly keeping them from living their dream, living who they wanted to be. And they took that to task, every single person. And there were a number of authors that came in. And I think when they got a sense of what it was going to be, they weren't ready, or for whatever reason, it wasn't theirs to do. So every one of these authors made a conscious decision to step through the initiation first of the journey of death and rebirth that is Teotihuacan, of saying yes to authoring their life and telling their story from pain to passion to purpose, and now stepping forward and claiming that personal freedom. And if you're watching any of these interviews, you're seeing how powerful that experience has been for them and how powerful they are, as healers, as teachers, as beings on this planet. It's super exciting. So I'm honored. You fall in love with each other on these journeys when you see all your heartbreaks. When we hold that for each other, when we honor each other, we fall in love. It's that vulnerability that is the good stuff.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I think also it's because we're falling in love with ourselves a little bit deeper at the same time that we can give that love to the others in the group. We could talk all day long about the journey itself, you guys. I want our viewers to understand that this was no ordinary book project. This was something that was quite special, now that we've done a couple of times and we're getting ready to do again next year in Peru. It's really, really exciting what you've created and what we have created together. I know that it's been quite a journey for you, both of you and the authors, to write and then publish the stories. I'm so grateful to you both and to all of the co-authors for saying yes and like taking that on. You talk about it as an initiation, this ultimate step of finding and sharing our voices. It's been transformational for so many people, and both of you included. I don't know, maybe Jeremy, I know I've really enjoyed watching your journey with the writing and publishing specifically. Maybe tell me more about why that's a transformation.
Well, first I just want to piggyback on how, like Steph, how blown away I was by all these authors, and how like impressed and humbled I was by each of these stories. And so just so grateful to them. And for me, it was a process. I grew up, like Steph, with, a beautiful family that was dysfunctional, and the school system, I didn't learn that way. Right. And so in third grade, I got put in resource room English and reading, and I made some agreements, and I stayed in there till, 11th grade. And so I never really learned. I say I didn't know how to read, which wasn't true, but I didn't know how to write. And so I had so much shame, anxiety, worry about writing. And so when we got to the first book, I reluctantly, like I've done, stepped into the fire many times, and said, okay, I'll do it. And then completely, regressed. We call regress, like that shame, that anxiety, that worry, that old agreements. I got really young, and when I was in that regress state, there's like nothing in my mind. It's a protective, disassociative state in some degrees, and so it really was an initiation. It took me a while, and I reached out to my people that I have and support, Laura, everybody, and for a minute there, I would have full conversations with people and I would get it, and then boom, I'd regress right back. And so it was really where I seen the beauty of what we are doing, not just as a journey, not just as a book, not just as writing, but as a complete initiation for people to step into. And in this book, like the vulnerability and the stories that people shared are just like, I am so blown away by the courage. And so my journey, was that, and I got through the first book, and got help, and it was kind of a vision for me. It was on my vision board from years ago. It was, and I busted through a whole lot of agreements. So coming to this book, I was in San Miguel, Mexico, and I went for a walk every day, and I sat in the park, and I just wrote. I wrote, and it was almost easy on some level. It took, a fourth of the effort, the first book. And, I love my chapter, and I go back and read the old chapter. I'm like, oh, that was pretty good. But it took me a little bit to get there. But I'm so grateful for it. And I think this group of authors was a huge leap of faith for a lot of them. And it shows the book. It's just, yeah,
I
breathtaking.
agreed. Stephanie, anything else you want to follow up on that one?
Just again, yeah, that the whole thing is an initiation, the journey, the coming together, the vulnerability. It's all such an important part of the transformation that inevitably has happened for every single author.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I
You-
would say,
And
oh,
what's super cool about that is that then translates to the reader. We feel as the reader those words, we feel those experiences, we're walking. And, it's just so cool to read 25 different chapters, 25 different experiences of how someone went back and found this moment or a lifetime of moments where, as Jeremy said, they acquiesced unknowingly to not being who they were or believing in themselves or knowing how amazing they were, and how just going back to that moment and giving it attention and then writing through it, it's like that part of us comes back to life and lives on those pages. And then that's what every reader, including us, gets to feel. I'm cheering every single person on, and I'm feeling that. I'm like, I felt that too, and it's amazing. I just feel, excited to be on the planet right now because of these stories. Like, we can do this, y'all.
No doubt. I want our listeners to understand too, you're going to be enjoying the stories that Stephanie and Jeremy are telling you about, but we have included the medicine for you as well. And so one of the things I get the most excited about is we wanted to put the practical tools in your hands so that you could have not only a collection of powerful stories, there's healing in those themselves, but you could also practice the sacred medicine that each of our author experts is offering it's in the second part of each chapter. So I'm really specifically kind of proud of that piece in our titles, because I wanted people needed that medicine. They needed a way to connect, especially over the last few years. Jeremy, you said you had one thing you wanted to add to that
Well, I mean,
too.
you both kind of perfectly, in the way intent works, you both kind of went into it, but I just really, that was the second part, that is this, each of these people really brought forth beautiful teachings. And the book is in itself an initiation, each of those things to inspire that, with the medicine, with the teachings. I mean, even knowing all these people, I found myself really compelled to, like, ooh, I want to do that. Ooh, I want to do that. you know? And so,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, so both of you, Freedom Folk and Soul, and you both as master healers and teachers, you've made yourselves known for the kind of shamanic healing approach that's in this book, but specifically a sacred journey breath work that you facilitate and help people and guide them in. Could you tell us just a little bit more about that?
Sure.
Do you want
Go
to
ahead.
go? I can say for me that I spent the first 40 years of my life, and my chapter actually starts off at this beginning of my life, when I turned 40 years old and I was going through a divorce. And, we write about this in the intro of the book, that many of these sacred heartbreaks in our life, if we can look at them as initiations, this is initiation, it changes everything. I didn't have that wisdom when I was, invited into a divorce that broke my heart and took me back to my primary childhood story of, I am unlovable, I'm not wanted. I tried to run from that story my entire life. I tried to remake that story. I tried to make everybody love me. Everybody love me so I can feel like I'm lovable, I'm wanted, I'm worthy. And I had 15 years of therapy, talk therapy, and I had an amazing counselor. But it wasn't until that great big giant fire that I was brought to my knees that I lost everything, every dream, the marriage, the family, my career, everything went up, was gone, and I was broken. And in that place is where I actually met Jeremy, who was carrying all these experiential adventure healing modalities. Having been adopted into the Lakota tribe, he carried all the rites of passage, from vision quests to the sweat lodges, to all these sacred initiations. And of course, we began to add those more and more initiations, because as I did breath work, as I did sweat lodges, as I did fire walks, as I did a vision quest, as I was held in sacred witness, those younger parts of myself came forward and came back to life. And this is the path that we call personal freedom. Because when we come back to life, we're now in the present moment. We're not traumatized, not living, caught in the past. We're right here in this moment, living, loving, dreaming, going for it, having the courage. And so that's really, sacred journey breathwork is one of the powerful modalities that we bring people through to help initiate those parts of themselves that are ready to come forward. So,
What do you want to add, Jeremy?
Well, I think Steph did a beautiful job. That was what I was thinking. It is one of the modalities. Breathwork is a powerful modality which gets us somewhat out of our mind and into the body. And a lot of these traumas, a lot of these stories are stored in the body. And it's why, like, I spent 15 years in mental health world and addictions recovery, and talk therapy has its place. And, it really helped me get at least safe enough to get to some of these deeper things. But when we can do these experiential, um, modalities, these experiential things, it really changes us on a cellular level. and the healing, like Steph talked about. For years, she did talk therapy, but until she hit these experiential ways. And I don't know why it's so, I have theories why it's so much more effective, but it just is. It just is. And, when we can do these things, like Steph said, and start to see, our value, our worth, our knowing, our, grab our sovereignty, then life just opens up in a beautiful way. And so breath work is a rockin' modality to do that. We certainly didn't invent breath work. It's been around for many, 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 many years. But like Steph said, we've taken this collection of experiences that we both have had, these teachings, these trainings, and really brought it forth in these journeys, in our trainings. And, we really love to help people step into. I think the book is a great thing for that, is step into their medicine and their, what they are meant to bring forth into the world through their message. And so we love to work with people and do that too.
It's such a profound, powerful book. I can't wait to get it into people's hands. Okay, so for today, Jeremy, I'm going to start with you for this one and come to Stephanie. What do you think is the very most important thing that you want the viewers today to understand about the healing journey? Simple, foundational thing.
To show up. To regardless of your resistance, your stories, the I don't want to be there's. As we begin to say yes to some of this work, life presents resistance. Just show up, get yourself there, read the book, go to the workshop, go to the class, get on the Zoom. um, and that is the hardest part, is getting our butt in the seat. And I would say often to people, you don't have to want to be here for the magic and the healing to happen.
That's a powerful statement. Stephanie, how about you? What's the one most important thing you want people to know about this journey?
I would say that your struggle, your heartbreak, your confusion, your pain, your depression, your lostness, whatever that is, whatever the story is an invitation into an initiation of transformation. And transformation is about living a life of meaning and purpose and joy and connectedness to life and to all your relations. That's the good stuff. That's why we do this. It's not just to heal, it's to live in an amazing life.
We are here for the good stuff, you guys. So you guys have a ton going on besides this book. Stephanie, congrats for being at the Grand Ole Opry the other day, just the other night, right? Tell us more about the other stuff going on in your world.
Well, Jeremy, do you want to talk about all the amazing things coming with Freedom, Folk, and Soul this year?
Yeah, well, I kind of spoken to that. We really love to do transformational work. What's really important to us is many of our core programs, which is our core program is the Toltec Medicine Wheel of Transformation, tend to be, they are no more than 12 to 13 people in those groups. And so it's a real intimate year-long process. And we do that in two ways. We have one starting in a week in Dallas. That is a year-long program. It meets 4 long weekends over the course of the whole year. And then there's classes and breath work and things in between. We also do it in Teotihuacan, Mexico, over 2 one-week processes. And that is starting in June of this year. And so if you really want to go for a deep dive into a deep dive and a deep, I don't know, huge transformation, huge freedom. That is our core program. We have a few other, trips going on. We have a trip to Oaxaca, Mexico around Day of the Dead and honoring our ancestors in October of this year. And then we have a big trip that we're super excited with Jorge Luis Delgado, who's wrote a bunch of books and has been on that show Ancient Aliens, and he's a Peruvian shaman and medicine keeper, to Egypt for 2 weeks this in November. And so, anything else you want to add?
And then we're
Stephanie?
going to Africa with Carly Matamore and John Malin. And it's a shamanic journey to Africa. So excited about that. Next February, I'm leading a women's journey to Avalon with Vera Lopez and Jennifer Harvard of Gaia Sisterhood. And then what we're super duper excited about is our next author's journey will be a book author journey called We Are the Ones We've Been Waiting For with Brave Healer Productions and Laura Waco in Peru in August of 2024.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm listening to your list and going, oh my gosh.
People, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sign
wait.
up now.
Oh, wait, we forgot one thing, and that is that we're a big part, honored to be a big part of the Brave Healers Writer Retreat in New York next May. And we hope that any of you who are interested in writing on any of these books or have written, you want to be there, because there is something about being in the presence of this woman, Laura, that is incredibly powerful and will magnify your magic.
Thank you for remembering that one. I almost didn't even remember to talk about that one. Yeah, these author journeys, Stephanie and Jeremy's author journey to Peru, the New York retreat, they're tied to best-selling books, you guys. So if you're feeling that little purpose-driven fear about writing and publishing with a group of people who really get the healing journey and beyond, then these are the projects you all need to come find out more about. And of course, I've got you hooked up with Freedom Folk and Soul website, all of the links down below in the show notes. You guys can come, please explore, because these are so much more than books. This is a community of people who are generous, who care about you, who care about the next step, who care about answering a question you might have, something you heard Stephanie or Jeremy say today, right? This is a community of people who are there for you to take that next step. And I'm so honored again and proud of the community that is building around the books and the healing and all of the amazing things that we're doing. So Stephanie, Urbina, Jones, Jeremy, Pajer, thank you both so much for what you do in the world and for being here today to share it with everyone.
Thank you, Laura. We're so grateful to be in life with you.
So Shaman Heart, Sacred Rebel, we're going to have a book launch party and you guys are invited. So I've got some information about the Zoom event that's happening on June 2nd, 10 a.m. Eastern. It's down below for you. And of course, if you are listening to this interview anytime around that date or after, that means you just got to get your butt to Amazon and buy a copy of the book for yourself. Start your amazing journey. And lastly, today, everyone, remember, your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. It is time to be brave. See you next time, everyone.